Listen, my Christian brothers from the West, those who forget history are destined to repeat it. You are not the only prodigal son that has been given the opportunity to return home. But let me show you the way. Every prodigal son can come home. The Father is waiting with open arms to accept you. But you have used the Lord's name in vain. You are the fig tree that did not produce fruit. And let's review what happens to the fig tree that I am could not eat from. Acts 3 verse 10. John the Baptist predicted, the axe is ready at the root of trees that do not produce fruit. It will be cut down and thrown into the fire. And then the master himself in Mark 11, 12, 13, and 17, he came out, and as he saw a fig tree in the distance, he walked over to the fig tree in the summer months, expecting for there to be fruit on the tree. And when he got to the fig tree produced no fruit. And he said, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And the tree withered immediately. I say the same thing to Christianity today. That name is no longer fit for spiritual consumption because of the lack of fruit that you have produced. Today we place the same asterisk on Christianity that has been placed on Major League Baseball and A-Rod for cheating the game. You have cheated the game for all of these years, and now you bear an asterisk. In Mark 17:17, the master said, when he went to the temple and the money changers were there exchanging money, he said, you have made my house a den of robbers. My house was supposed to be the house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. And you have done the same thing with the name of Christianity. You have made it into a place to carry out your business of exploitation. In Revelation 18:23, he said, you have no more light in you, and you cannot hear the voice of the bridegroom. By Christianity in this prophecy, it says, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. We know the bridegroom is the great I am, and the bride is his church here on this earth, which Christianity claimed to be. Christianity just got called out. It said, because merchants were the great men of the earth and deceived all of the nations. And that's exactly what has happened in history. From the time of the so-called holy wars, the crusades, to the Christian monarchs of Europe and the Christian priests of Europe, right down to presidents of the United States. Your great men, your merchants.
For a few minutes, Gary Webb is on the line from San Jose, and if you want to stay and talk about this article, I need some help here. Right. Gary Webb, are you there this morning?
Yeah, I am.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Very tired. Early out here.
I apologize. You're really nice to do this. We've had so many calls about this, is why we asked you to do it.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it.
I actually heard you on a radio station when I was in Detroit a couple of weeks ago for about an hour talking about this. This is what it's all about. It's the San Jose Mercury News, and here's a front page piece in August the 18th, and it's the first of a three-part series. Tell us, you know, in a couple of minutes, what this is about.
It's about a drug ring that operated in San Francisco and Los Angeles in the mid-'80s, and it was connected to a Nicaraguan anti-communist army called the FDN, which was one of the biggest groups that we know as the Contras, and it was selling cocaine in Los Angeles for the most part, but in other areas of the country as well, to the gangs, to the Crips and Bloods. Down in South Central Los Angeles, and they were taking the money and using some of it, I don't know how much, and we haven't figured that out yet, to buy weapons for the Contras. And you know, I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds like the wildest conspiracy theories, which is why all our supporting documentation for the thing is posted on the internet. And if anybody's interested, I can give you the internet address a little later on.
Yeah, we've got from the Mercury News here a big chart that you put together from the Sunday story. Did you write all this, by the way?
Yes, I did.
This is a chart that shows how the money left down around Colombia. And can you give us a little bit of this scenario on how these plans?
I'm not looking at a television right now, but is that the pipeline chart?
It is.
Yeah. Those were the various smuggling routes that the ring used starting in the late 70s up to the early 90s to get the cocaine into the country and to get some of the money back out of the country. And it depending on the year and depending on the how intense the police scrutiny was, which wasn't very for the most part. Those are the different routes they used. They used freighters. They used stolen cars.
Wow.
They would just fly the stuff in suitcases early on when you didn't bring very much in.
Let me read you the first one up here, which is right near Los Angeles. It says, mid-1970s, luxury cars stolen in California were driven to Nicaragua, where they were officially imported by the Nicaraguan military to avoid stiff excise taxes and sold to wealthy Managuans.
Right.
The second number, which is way down here in Peru, it says mid-late 1970s, Peruvian cocaine was smuggled to Panama, secreted in suitcases and shoes with false bottoms and carried into the U.S. by airline passengers. Points of entry included San Francisco, Los Angeles, Houston, and New Orleans. The third one is late 1970s to 83. Cocaine from the new Cali cartel in Colombia was loaded onto freighters owned by the Gran Colombian Line. The freighters were offloaded in the ports of Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. 4, early 1980s, cocaine was flown from Colombia to the Bahamas, where it was loaded aboard small planes and flown into Miami. From there, couriers would take it to California aboard commercial airliners.
Right.
Now, I can go on about this, but where did you get the new information?
It's been public record for 20 years almost. Well, it was just from court files. I mean, eventually, once in a while, they would catch one of these people. The DEA would file an affidavit and lay out what they knew about the drug ring's operations, and it came from, a lot of stuff in National Archives mostly, a lot of these old court cases. And then there were cases in Nicaragua which laid out the smuggling routes through that country into the United States, so we had the back end of it as well.
One crucial figure has been in and out across the decades. Floyd Sr., the champ's first trainer. Floyd was raised in the gyms of Grand Rapids, Michigan. A youth spent studying those who came before him. His father and his uncle Roger, both well-regarded pros. Still, it was clear early on his talents surpassed even his pedigree. In 1993, under his father's tutelage, Floyd won his first National Golden Gloves championship. He was 16.
It felt good, but it was very hard. I had to struggle, struggle and fight. But at first, I want to thank the good man upstairs for giving me this opportunity to win the national championship. And second of all, I want to thank my father.
He's the best in the Midwest, I must confess. For all the rest, is no contest. When he was young, man, you can't believe what he was doing. I mean, this guy was destined to be a champion. And I did what it took to get him where he had to go. And, and in the process of me doing all that, I ended up going to prison.
Just weeks removed from Floyd's first national title, Sr. was sentenced to 5.5 years for drug trafficking.
That was a bad, hard thing for me. I thought about my son a whole lot. We used to talk a lot on the telephone, and he used to ask me things, and tell him things about what he needs to do, and I did that.
Young men need their fathers. Fighters need their trainers. Floyd had lost both. At 19, with his dad still in prison, he qualified for the '96 Olympic Games in Atlanta.
I think about him. I think about him. He in my heart. I go down there thinking he in my corner. Just don't think about nothing else. I go down there thinking he in my corner.
Everything in life happens for a reason, and that made me work hard and push myself to the limit.
In advancing to the quarterfinals, Floyd became the first American Olympian to beat a Cuban fighter in 20 years. And though his father remained in federal penitentiary 700 miles away, he was determined to enjoy it.
Hey, they got a pen trading place over here. I'm gonna trade my pen. Hey, what y'all have this pen? So what you gonna trade me for this for? They really into this pen trading.
And I also learned some facts that blew my mind. I learned there are more African American adults under correctional control today, in prison or jail, on probation or parole, than were enslaved in 1850, a decade before the Civil War began. I learned that as of 2004, more black men were disenfranchised than in 1870, the year the 15th Amendment was ratified, prohibiting laws that explicitly deny the right to vote on the basis of race. Now, of course, during the Jim Crow era, poll taxes and literacy tests operated to keep black folks from the polls. Well, today, in some states, felon disenfranchisement laws accomplish what poll taxes and literacy tests ultimately could not. A black child born today has less of a chance of being raised by both parents than a black child born during slavery. And this is due in no small part to the mass incarceration of black men.